Hey, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Energy Unleashed with Kim and Suzanne. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Suzanne. Hi,
How are you?
everybody.
Good. I have been kind of sitting here thinking about what I wanted to talk about, and I was kind of like, go over my last couple clients, my last couple weeks, and I was just kind of scratching my head going, there's so many people that are walking into my office that are brand new to awakening. And they're like, and they use that word, which I think is super funny because I guess that's the new word, and I'm having an awakening and I woke up and I had this, this revelation and all these words. And I'm like, God, and it's so fun for me to see these people that like have no clue of what's going on. Like they're just like, I don't even know what to say. And I was thinking about that, and then I was online just yesterday on my catching up with some things on my website, and was going through something on an old blog, and so many people on there saying, I'm having my awakening, and I'm awakening, and I'm like, God, it's so funny. So you sit there and you think of all these people that are having their awakening, and then my horrible, nasty human brain goes to, why are there so many people that aren't awakening?
Oh, oh,
And I'm going to be really nasty and honest for a minute because I love being human on these things because I think we deserve to be.
mhm.
I, Especially being a worker, being a light worker, healer, whatever, all those silly words that we give ourselves. I sometimes get really pissed off that there aren't more people waking up. And sometimes I want to talk about the flip side. I think it's great that people are waking up and they're coming in my office and other offices and reading and meditating and doing, blogs and talks and whatever. That's great. But what about all the other ones that are walking around? I mean, sometimes I sit there and State Fair, for example, holy bananas, walk through the State Fair and see the, how many millions of people walking around chewing, not that chewing on a corn dog means that you're not awake, but I mean, it's just like, why doesn't anybody think about this stuff? I mean, what is happening to all those other people that are like not even like don't even have like one iota of idea that something's happening. Like, what is that? And I get really pissy. I know, right?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
The pissy healer today,
Well, that's a lot to unload because I mean, not everybody's meant to awaken, right? Like
right?
contract wise. Um, but I also believe that there's more because there are more people getting exposed to a lot of this energetic information. I mean, just look at empathing, how much that's changed. Like nobody talked about that, 10 years ago,
Oh
right?
God, it wasn't even like a word. I mean,
No, and
empathy was a word, but not empathing. Yeah.
right. And understanding, their own energy or putting rocks in their pockets or, it's just like I have cousins that, are doing things that I'm like, I never would have guessed. Like,
Yeah.
they are coming around to all of this. Um, and
But
I,
what about the people that aren't though, Kim? What about these
I
these
know,
people? These people. What is happening inside of there? What is that?
I just am not sure they're meant to. I think they're just kind of meant to be here to maybe spawn a child and then go on. I don't know. I mean, it's so weird that I don't know. Like they were they're here for one thing or a few things and then they move on. I don't know. I
Well,
guess I'm not that in depth
I,
about that.
yeah, I know. I was, not that I set you up on these things, but I mean, I think of all sides before we do them, obviously. And I totally agree. It's 100% soul contracts.
Yeah.
Not everybody on this planetary existence at this point in time signed up for the so-called quote unquote ascension process and or awakening at this time. And awakening happens in cycles and or I mean they're 26,500 year cycles, but still these are the contracts that people come in with are like you said, maybe they came in to spawn a child, maybe they just came in for a karmic return or a karmic experience and that was it, and that's fine and dandy. And then there are those people that literally are signing up because specifically their skill sets and their accumulated knowledge as a soul or a higher being or an essence is here to do the work. And I totally get that. But I think what's even more astounding to me is the volume of them. And then I do my best to go, okay, but we're just fractals of each other. We're all fractals of the same light. We're all fractals of experiences looking at things differently. So if everybody was awakened, that would be a little crazy too, right? I mean, because then it would be already done and then we wouldn't be in this process. So, I mean, your brain can
Right?
go all over the place with this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think it's really important though to find out why they're not being awakened. And that's I think what I want to unleash a little bit is that there's so many people that could be in that category of going, oh, I heard the seed planted, or that really resonated with me, or gosh, I watched that documentary and I thought, huh, maybe I don't know things. So those are happening, but what is keeping that from happening is the programming. I mean, there's
mm,
still so much programming and conditioning on our planet that it is overbearing and overwhelming.
well, but also look at the negative agenda. Like
Yeah.
there are not that there's the programming coming out of television alone, social
Media, yeah,
media, all of
social,
those things. Like you're talking about
right.
the program, maybe you want to jump into that a little more because video games, all the things. I think that that awakening piece, they may think they're awakening, but they're really programmed, and so they're
You,
not getting that light awakening, that is, really meant to happen. They've
yeah.
chosen or they're manipulated into something else.
Well, I think the social media thing we've touched on them in other podcasts, but I'll just touch it here in terms of there is so much available space in the
Hmm.
fourth dimension, the astral plane, to get into people's dream space, into their brain period, into their resonance if they're doing things on computers too much, especially gaming, like we've said. All kinds of conspiracy things. If you're down the rabbit hole every day, you're more susceptible to the programming, right? And it's not to say don't go peek in the rabbit hole, but just don't live in it. It's all of those things are really, I think, very mm, wobbly right now. I mean, especially these chat things we've been talking about recently, also, especially in our Vibe Tribe group, we talk a lot about the imposters on Chat GPT and Gork, I think is the other one. It's tricking people into thinking that they're in this ascension process and that they're waking up and they're remembering things. It's tricking people into thinking that, oh, this is my past life and it's so important, No, this life is what's important, and on and on. So I do believe that there's such enormous amounts of stuff going on. I also believe that so many people have come back with trauma and really crappy, shitty situations to clear
Yeah.
out generational lineage trauma. But again, no one gave us the instruction book on ascension. So if we are one of those people that is here to experience getting out of generational trauma, yet we don't have the instructions. How do we get out of it? How do we even know until we do stumble across something or someone or, a document or a documentary that says this stuff? We don't know, so we're just perpetuating that trauma. So there's there's a lot of confusion um, on what's real ascension and real waking up versus what's just the bullshit and what's cool, especially
Mhm.
when we get into things like TikTok and Instagram and social media and even Facebook. I mean, it's gotten crazy, right?
It,
It's
it is
crazy,
crazy, and it's really hard sometimes for me to, I really have to, um, search myself when I'm listening to something to say, does that really ring true for me?
right?
I don't, it doesn't feel right. It feels kind of icky.
Well,
I
and
want to leave it.
still, Kim, think about it. At least you're going inward for that 9 out of those 10 people. And again, I'm not judging anybody that's not awake because everyone's doing exactly what they're supposed to do.
Hmm.
Let's put it this way. Let's just get this one out there. If everybody woke up overnight, a lot of people, oh, we're going to have the solar flare and oh, we're going to have this catastrophe and everyone's going to wake up or not. Yeah, okay. That's going to be like jumping off buildings, okay? If all of a sudden the so-called whole, Vatican blew open, every Christian under the sun and Catholic would be, like, what? Because that's my entire belief system just got pulled out from underneath me. We
Right.
can't, or aliens, and all of a sudden they're just there and I'm supposed to just swallow all that. We can't have awakening coming in a 24-hour period in mass because people would lose their ever-loving minds and literally be jumping off of buildings like in the depression stages. It wouldn't happen correctly if we want to say it that way.
Right.
It has to eke out. It has to be comfortable. It has to kind of like morph into whatever you choose it to look like because there isn't one form of awakening either. So there are really valid reasons why I want to pose the questions all the time in terms of like I do get frustrated though. I just want to shake some people and say, how can you not think beyond your crappy job, your horrible mother-in-law, and your shitty kid? Why can't you just pull your bootstraps up? But there's reasons for it. And to find that compassion, I'm pretty good with it most of the time, but sometimes I'm just sick and tired of trying to find that compassion. I just want to hit them over the head and say, take some self-responsibility for this planet. If you've never even thought that the trees might really feel something as you're burrowing them down because you want a bigger house, I mean, not that you don't get the bigger house, but I mean, at least talk to the tree and then they look at you like you're a nut job. So I, there's false safety in the illusion, and I think that's the biggest problem.
Oh, you have to talk about that. That's like what is that? Like false
Yeah.
safety in the
So, meaning, if I believe in the illusion that everything's okay, for example, we tip the scales a lot in Vibe Tribe also with human trafficking and SRA and child, sexual abuse and, selling children and even more morbid than that in rituals, etc. And no one wants to think about that. No one wants to hear it. No one wants to discuss that. So they pull the blind eye and they walk around like this. Well, that's because I have a false sense of safe. I'm safe if I don't think those things are on my planet. I'm safe if I don't think those things that happen to me or my family or anyone I know. I'm safe if that isn't really a thing. That's all bullshit. You're not safe. So you're living in this false sense of illusionary safe. And that's what people don't want to let go of, because when you start a true spiritual journey, shit hits the fan and you start to have things come in your face that you don't necessarily want to know.
yeah, you don't want to know, and the safety goes away, which is
Yes.
a frightening, you go into that fight or fright.
Yeah.
It's not great for your body, it's not great for your mind. It's
Well, let's not say the safety necessarily goes away. The safety changes in terms of the safe is no longer outside of myself. The safe is dependent upon how I feel inside of myself.
right, right.
So, but people are absolutely conditioned and trained to find the safe outside of themselves and the savior program outside of themselves. And so when we start to have our comfort like get threatened, I want to avoid. I mean, I want to avoid that whole subject because if I talk about it, it could potentially be real. Well, it is real. And so why not get some self-responsibility? And this is where I have a really difficult time. I get really frustrated and short-tempered with that kind of a thing because it's like if everyone would just get their big boy and big girl pants on and say, this is no longer acceptable or tolerable, we would have massive changes on that stuff in this world a lot faster and a lot quicker. I mean,
Yeah,
the mass amounts of humans on this planet standing up for something as sacred as children should, and I'm going to say the word,
should.
should be happening, right? It
It should
should be
be.
happening.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
it's really hard, but to have that collective balance too. If we found out, satanic ritual abuse and children sacrifice was real overnight in a really blatant way. I mean, look how our state took a hit on just a school shooting last week. I mean,
Oh
we
my
had a
gosh.
school shooting of children and it was terrifying and it was, takes a blow to your solar plexus and your gut for 2 days. Well, God, what if you found out that 300,000 were getting popped off the planet. I mean, it's like every kid, every hour there's a kid gone in lots of countries. Every single solitary hour, there's multiple kids gone in so many countries. And we just have that avoidance eye. And to me, that's just so sad. But there is a reason there needs to be a balance on this planet as well. So I struggle with that though. It's a really tough one for me, right?
Yeah, and oh God, it's a hard one because I don't want to say closed-minded. I want to say there are people that are stuck in routine that continually watch the same things over and over and over, and they're not expanding beyond the other options or things that are out there to learn from.
Right.
Um, and so I don't think you grow very much when you're in that kind of a like situation,
No, we only really grow from really fearful, we don't I don't want to say we don't grow from joy because that's not true. But I
right,
mean, when we're really up against fearful, horrible, things and we do pull our bootstraps up, like I said, and we do get enraged to have action, etc., we do grow in a million ways. And not that we want our world to be enraged all the time. That's not what I'm saying by any means. But these are the ebbs and flows of the cycle. These are the way that the spirals move. This is how energy actually works. And to so be stagnant and wonderful and beautiful and joyful all day long, we as a planet or a species would never grow. It just doesn't work that way,
right,
right?
right,
So if we want to be avoidance of conflict 24/7, we don't grow. And so complacency is not about, you know, even growth of the human, much less the species,
right.
you know.
Well, and I
So
can imagine that people that are coming in to say, I'm awakening, will you fix me? Will you take care of, like for you, that's part of the frustration is no, it's your job to do this.
Yeah.
So let me help guide you maybe a little bit, but you are responsible for what you're learning and new skills or what you're educating yourself on with what's out there.
And
Um,
newbies are all over the board. There are some of those. Those are actually not necessarily the newbies that are saying I'm awakening. The awakened newbies are so excited that they can't wait to get their hands on more and more information, and they are lapping it up like a dog. That's what I went through for at least 2 years, where I
oh
couldn't
gosh,
get
I did too. I'm like, what
couldn't
else
get
can
enough.
I read? Where else?
Yeah,
Point me
yeah.
in the right direction.
It's
Yeah.
the ones that are more in that mid-range that have been doing the spiritual walk for a while, but aren't willing to do the really tough, deep, dark work. Those
Mm,
are the ones that want to be quote unquote fix me. And that is frustrating as a practitioner, not just me, but yeah, acupuncturists, chiropractors, anybody that's holistic medicine does have that same challenge where people are like, fix me. And then you give them all the insight or the suggestions, not that we have all the answers, but you do give them the suggestions or the homework. And then they come back the same way, 2 months later, 4 months, 4 years, whatever.
mhm.
So it is the self-responsibility part that I really do get frustrated with sometimes in terms of if you want changes, stop bitching about it, do something, right? I mean,
Right.
do something about it.
Right. And this is so different than, when you first started talking, I'm like, wait a minute, because we have backdrop people
Yep.
that are really, blank with, nothing really.
And those are a whole different deal. That's like, is
Yeah.
that even a real person? That neighbor that I see do the same action every single solitary day for 4 years and I never ever see them do anything else. Is that even real?
Yeah.
Who knows if it's a holographic backdrop person? Those are like the stage, the chorus and the musical on the stage. You have to have the action in the background, and that's not even what I'm talking about as much as the ones that are in their body and aware and just really, really stuck in the repetitive stupidness of 3D and still complaining about it. But I also love those kinds of clients periodically also because to actually have somebody look at you after you've said something as simple as, well, okay, so what do you do to relax or find quiet time? Well, I go for walks and I love to walk through the trees. And then I'll say something as simple as, oh, that's awesome. Do you talk to the trees or work with the trees' energy? I mean, do you reciprocate with the trees? Do you give them your pain and take their love? Or do you, and I'll go on and on like that. And their faces will just do this whole contortion thing like, what the hell is this lady talking about? And they'll just stop for a while after that and they'll kind of scratch their head and do this. I just guess I've never thought to do that. Now, again, I don't know when I started to think to do that. I don't know if I always knew to do that or if I just had that in me or if I learned it or whatever. But there has to be an igniting point within us to have the awakening. And it can be something as simple as that. Or, like you said, it could be a podcast, it could be a TV show, it could be a relative, it can be anything. And I love the aha moment. I think those are just priceless. I do. I think that they're wonderful to experience on somebody else,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. But I get the complaining about the same things
Yeah.
for long periods of time and not making any type of change, or choosing to, make other decisions for yourself, especially, if things are there and available for you. That's frustrating.
And I believe right now it's very important to be studying things that are horrific and that you don't want so that you can send that horror back to source energy and say this is not acceptable. It's not fun to learn things about really horrific things. I mean, I was telling you earlier, I was listening to a really crazy ass podcast on someone who was a high priest in Satanism and the horrific things he had to do and give up in his life to get there, but then finally cracked and went into a beautiful ministry to help people get out of that. I mean, there's a soul contract reversal, right? I mean, that's awesome. I mean, come down here and have the horror and then really say, helping save other people in terms of not saving, but saving them in terms of their sanity, obviously, and their safety. And so these things that we don't want to listen to, I'm not saying get yourself caught up in all of the horrible, horrific things 24/7 because it can wear on you. And if you don't have a balance in your own self, you can start to get really mystically depressed on that stuff. But if you do have a capacity to hold neutral with that, kinds of things, please don't walk around completely complacent and ignorant to everything because then you are consenting in terms of saying it's okay, I just don't care. And that's not acceptable on this planet any longer. That isn't, especially when it comes to children, that's just not acceptable. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of children, I'm so proud of my kids. I just think conversations with them now and the things that they're
Mhm.
looking at and what they're opening to is so fascinating to watch, not thinking that they would ever, consider,
Yep.
some of the spiritual and or looking into what some of the horrific things are and really, not consenting or condoning that those kinds of behaviors. It's just really great as adult children seeing the adult children really,
Or
dig
even
this
just
a little bit.
having the potential disclosure conversations, it's really important for us to also realize that 9/10 of what we're looking at is simulation and illusion, and to really know that there's so much that we can do and we can care about so many things without carrying the load inside of us, killing ourselves over it,
Right.
right? We
Right.
can care about it with empathy and then send it through without empathing it. And these are really, really important times to shift that. Now, one of the things that people talk about awakening is there's got to be a percentage of people on the planet in order for us to get the timeline and lock it in and all that crap. That changes every second of every second. That's just kind of silliness to me to say, oh, we need 80% of, 7.9 billion people. That's just ridiculous. Or 2% or even a half a percent. Those are all just, I think, kind of just nonsense words. But what I think we want to do is we want to focus on the fact that people are waking up. It's not a percentage things or a number thing. Oh my God, we're only at 42%. We need to be 43. Whatever. I mean, focus on the fact that people are waking up, that there
Mhm.
is 42%. I'm just making that number up.
Right.
And focusing on the advancement forward. That's that law of attraction again, saying this is happening, or it is already done in another timeline. We're just riding the wave on how we got there. Those are important things to put into the matrix right now versus sitting here whining about everything we don't know or understand or fear,
Or
right?
fear. Fear is a big one, right? I think fear is just really escalated for many reasons. So,
Yeah. And to really understand the trickery, and I think this is one of the human problems, and this is why there's so much of this, especially when it comes to dogma, but even well beyond that. I was at the cabin this weekend watching that documentary we had discussed on the giants and how many giants, literal giant skeletons there are, especially in this one particular island in Italy. And it's hundreds of, it's tens of thousands of these 12-foot actual full-blown skeletons have been retrieved out of the ground, and they interviewed multitudes of people that would remove these bones and they would put them in the church for housing, and then the next morning they were gone, and then they'd fill up the church again, and the next morning they were gone, and then they'd fill up the church again, and on it went. And these people are now, and they're super super old and being still scared to talk because they know that it all went through the church and it all went through the government and it all went through everything. So
mm,
what is so incredibly wrong with us knowing that there was 12-foot giants on this planet? Well, okay, that screws up the entire everything that we learned everywhere under the sun. And we start to realize, well, if they're faking that and if they're doing that, what else are they doing? And they talked about how the Smithsonian was hiding things and changing things and et cetera, et cetera. So these kinds of documentaries to me are important to not take with 100% because we don't know. You don't know who's making it, but
mm,
I mean, there's enough of them out there to be able to say, okay, this is a consistent message across the globe at the same time period. There's
mm,
probably something to this.
right. Right.
So, and why so much lying? Why so much covering up? What is the deal? And if they're covering up that, what else is covered up? That's why people don't want to know because it's going to blow their whole world to pieces. And
Yeah.
then there again, that sense of, well, shit, I thought I knew something. I thought I trusted people. I thought that, betrayal is one of the most difficult things a human can endure,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah,
and if
it's a
it's,
really interesting one that you because it is so out there. It's like, how could that happen?
mhm,
That this is really going on and we didn't know anything about it.
yeah. I
It's
mean, it's crazy that we don't know. And what it does is it screws us up, and then we don't know where we start and stop with reality. And then what do you do to get yourself back on track to not go crazy and get sucked into the madness and just let your whole life unravel? Well, it's important for you to, in my opinion, always have that curious mind, but also protect your boundaries. Also do alignment within you. Is this important to me or can I let this go? Do I disengage from this wholly because it's too much for me? Am I too much of an empath and I don't allow this to come into my space and into my heart space because I don't have the skill set to get rid of it, etc.? So, or am I skilled enough to do this work on behalf of others? And again, I get to whine once in a while because I choose to because I feel like there is still that piece of my humanness that goes, gosh, I do this kind of transporting of energy files 24/7 sometimes, and it would be nice to know others are doing that. And I'm sure there's millions of people doing it. Well, I hope there is. But it's something to think about, right? I mean, start to send that stuff back to source with an absolutely, I do not consent to this stuff. This is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I,
and that's part of our, role as the consciousness of one.
right?
But this is part of the disclosure, the cleanup, working our way into, one.
hmm
So,
I think it would
uh,
be fascinating to take a survey to see how many people even know what the consciousness of one means, the word awakening means, the word even consciousness, period. There's multitudes of people doing this work, and yet there's bazillions not, you know?
well, and I think you have a really great document that's for free on your website,
Oh,
swordley.com, that really
yep,
talks at length,
about the
about
ascension.
awakening and a lot of the terminology, and it
Yep.
is a great educational piece for anyone getting started.
Yeah, we're turning that into an actual book real soon here, but for right now it's an ebook on my site, the Ascension book. But these are things that are absolutely out there, like you said, not necessarily on World News Tonight at 5:30,
No,
but it is out there if you want to find it, right? So are the documentaries. Again, I'm going to say take everything with a grain of salt too. Don't believe everything just because it's on the internet. That's
right.
the other half of this. There's a balance in there that we need to use our own brain and our own body to be able to discern that is 100% bullshit or that's kind of really got some girth to it. So
Yeah. And then
just
hopefully you have somebody, that is in your world of people that is really good at ferreting things out too, because I know you have a son that will be like, no, if you look here, you look there.
yeah,
I dispel that.
yeah, yeah.
I have
Although
one of
I've tripped him up a lot lately on some of this paranormal stuff. He's been scratching his head.
but
So,
that's also fun.
this is a time when I think it's important for us to not look the other way because there is so much trickery.
Yeah.
And we want to be careful that we don't fall for stupid things like fake alien invasions, for example. And that we aren't stupid enough to think that our government is or isn't doing such and such, because it's important for each one of us to have a stake in what we're dealing with here and not just be led around by the nose or led around like this, because that both of those are just so far on the pendulum. It's like stay here and educate yourself and change your mind.
Yeah.
God knows. I mean, you know, I
Yeah.
don't have to believe what I believed 2 years ago.
Mhm.
I can change my mind tomorrow or by the time we hang up, it's okay
Yeah.
because your body is going to unlock really great information as you progressively go through these yeses and nos.
Yeah.
It's dormant. We want to activate it. That's why I get frustrated with the ones that are walking around like as they say, sheeple, which I think is silly, but being led by sheep or like sheep, and it's not easy and it's not always fun, but it's sure a heck of a lot more of a life to be involved with than it is to just pretend everything's great, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I think the light bulb moments are really amazing. And when I have them, and I, and because this is the process is, and we say it all the time, layers and layers and layers and layers of beliefs, you know.
Yep.
And so when you have those light bulb moments of, okay, this
hmm
makes so much sense to me, and it really resonates with me. And what I thought, it doesn't fit me. And so it's okay,
Well, the
to
fear I find when my clients hit that, Kim, the fear I find them finally being able to verbalize after, we him and ha in here for quite some time, is everyone's going to think I'm nuts. I'm going to lose my family. I'm going to lose my friends. I'm going to lose this. I'm going to lose that. So again, this is about that feeling of safe. And I'm going to think, I'm going to be all alone if I really believe what I believe in now. And this is the thing that I think is important to move through because you will be surprised at how many others are having doubts in their head as well. And when you have the courage to verbalize that, as long as one does not stand so firmly with their feet in cement on their beliefs, like I said, I would never put my feet in quicksand or cement for the beliefs because I change mine all the time.
Hmm. Right.
And I
Right.
think that's healthy, right?
It is.
So,
It is. Yeah.
but I know what that feels like to have people think that you're bonkers. I get it. I
Oh,
mean,
well, and I have found that, as I have been going through this, I was worried about that for sure. Like, especially with my family being, very set in their beliefs, especially around religion and
mhm.
those things. But it's so interesting that they, like my mom and dad, they look at things totally different in so many
Yeah,
cases. Like my dad is and has been for years into the alien,
I know.
Sasquatch, like all the things and conspiracy theory, looking
Yep,
at different things. And family members, friends, they're out there. I think
yep,
if they're dabbling, like even if they're just opening just a little bit to kind of understand something, it is it, they're not going to walk out of your life.
yep,
They're going to stick. So I was fascinated how many people were actually already dabbling in some of this stuff or really looking into it.
yeah.
It's great.
And I encourage people to go in with a completely kind of like, huh, attitude
Yeah,
because if you go in with a preset attitude, you're not going to hear half the stuff you're hearing or reading or seeing anyway.
right.
So do your best to walk in with no belief until you digest what it is that you're experiencing, and then it's kind of like, wow, that's interesting. So yeah, and there's so much coming out so quickly, and I think it's going to. I sort of feel like it feels like a bit of a pressure cooker right now that a lot is coming out. And we are, thank goodness, in some regards, appreciative to social media having less and less boundaries, having people be safer and safer to talk and have more public exposure so they can't get, axed in the back hallway after they said something like they used to even 5 years ago.
Hmm.
So it's almost like there is safety in being present on the airwaves now. And I think that that's a cool thing, whereas that wasn't the case even just a while ago. So people are having the courage to come out and say really horrific stories. And I believe it's our responsibility, if you choose, and I'm not telling you how to live, obviously, but if you choose to, just at least support the story and support it with compassion because there is some horrific stuff out there that needs to be stopped.
Hmm.
And the only way to stop it is to look at it. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It is.
But how courageous these people are. And of course there's idiots out there that are doing their 10 seconds of fame. That's all bullshit too. I mean, not every story is real, obviously. I mean, not every single solitary one that's coming out has the validity behind it that many of these do. But now it's moving, especially in this SRA stuff, is moving to really serious legal steps, which means there's validated absolutely more and more, documentation of this stuff happening, not just hearsay, which I
Right.
think is unbelievable and awesome and horrific all at the same time. So if you choose to, at least send the prayer up or send the concept up of how horrible that is, and then let it go so that you're clear,
Oh,
right?
oh, absolutely.
So
It's such a great topic that you just brought up because it it's you need to be well, you don't need to be. You
you don't
choose to
need to.
be
Yeah,
whatever
that's
you
the
want to
thing. You don't
be.
need
You
to.
you
Yeah,
choose to do what you want to do, but just to have that a little more open-mindedness and to listen,
yeah.
not preach, and not tell people what they need to believe.
Yeah,
Um,
and don't try to convince anybody either, because boy, the more you try to convince somebody, it just totally backfires in your face, and
mhm,
it just doesn't ever work. But planting a seed, I think, is a beautiful thing, and
mhm,
being able to say you don't have to believe a dang thing. It's fine. It's just my experience or my belief or whatever, and having that space just feels right, you
mhm.
know? So it's so counterintuitive to dogmatic things that everybody has to do and say the same thing at the same time and believe the same thing at the same time and it's just so different.
Yeah, it is so
So
different, and I love it. It's great.
yeah, people love conformity for some reason. Hopefully that's all going away.
Right?
right. Anyway, all right, for sure on this one, take what resonates and toss
Yeah.
the rest. And maybe, if you have some comments if you have some comments for the comment bar, it would be nice to know that you're thinking about these things, or maybe give advice on how you choose to move these things through on behalf of others, where you don't get your heart entangled and hurt your own self, because these are things that are not going to be going anywhere real soon, but hopefully will be coming to fruition and light very soon. They're serious stuff, and it's time to wake up in so many different ways. But again, not telling you how and when. Just let it happen organically, because there's always a higher source in charge of that stuff. So, okay, take what resonates. And until next time, maybe hit subscribe or share, and we'll talk to you soon. Cosmic hugs.
Goodbye.